Okay, so the questions in this relating to your draft working title, Alex Smith versus Newsgroup Newspapers, Hypnotism, Journalism, Justice and a Fake Sheik. Okay, the question, I'll go through them in order. Personal impact and motivation. How did Mazher Mahmood's actions affect your personal and professional life? Came as close to completely ruining things as is feasibly possible. Given that, as explained on circusofthemind.net, that's where you get the background, and you can also see my claimant's specific particulars of claim, which were filed on the 30th of September 2022 in Alex Smith versus NGN, which is what led to, in very late 2024, Newsgroup Newspapers making a Part 36 offer, a weaponised one, I say, because if they offer even 1 penny more than you would get were it to go to court and you'd win, which I'm sure I would have won, especially after discovery in the case. I can't go into great depth, but what I can say is during discovery from the Newsgroup Newspapers Enfield archives, I got videotapes, audio tapes, photographs, documents, receipts and stuff galore that shows other unlawful information gathering, phone hacking, surveillance, manipulation of situation, and a whole bunch of other things that are considered as new, fresh evidence that will be going to the Criminal Cases Review Commission on Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026, because I will be resubmitting to get my, I would argue, unsafe, fake shape related convictions overturned. So basically, how did Mahmood's actions affect my personal and professional life? Well, as the article falsely claimed that I was some kind of drug dealing, counterfeit money supplying, Uzi gun salesman, pimp and pornographer, despite the fact that I only ever got done for delivery of counterfeit coins, using money that was given to me up front by Mahmood and collecting them from a source that he and his associates told me to get them from, and I was severe intimidation and manipulation was used to make that happen. But as it was always my intention and belief that I was in control, which turns out I wasn't, because they were phone hacking, manipulating, using social engineering, stuff that I've only found out about in the past couple of years, which is what Alex Smith versus Newsgroup Newspapers was all about. Claimant specific particulars of claim again are on circusofthemind.net. I got wrongly branded as being some kind of major underworld criminal or something, and it gave me a criminal record. So yeah, it's had extreme negative effects for decades. It's definitely lost me work along the way, because there were people who believed that they couldn't possibly have lied, the newspapers couldn't have lied. But you know, in more recent years, thankfully, people have become aware that newspapers do lie and were lying extensively in things like the News of the World in the 90s and beyond, and that Mazher Mahmood got jailed after the collapse of the Talisa trial, which made it more public that he was a serial liar. And more evidence has come to light now, including the fact that in 1994 the police and the Crown Prosecution Service both communicated with each other after a collapse of a trial involving Mahmood's evidence, where he was shown to be a liar, and they said he could not and should not ever be relied upon as a witness of truth ever again. And yet, for some reason, they turned a blind eye for another 20 years until the collapse of the Talisa trial. And in a recent article by Paddy French, I'll send you the link of, it shows that numerous other trials collapsed over the years due to his lies, and yet the Crown Prosecution Service and the police never disclosed this to me or any of the other victims. Had these things been disclosed to me in advance of my 1999 trial, I would never have changed my plea on the first day of trial from not guilty to guilty due to the bad advice I got, because I would have been in a position to show that Mahmood was a serial liar, and if I'd have had that information, it probably never got to court anyway. Hence, going back to the CCRC on the 3rd of February 2026. It says, do you see yourself as a representation for other alleged victims of tabloid misconduct? Of course. The fact is, not every single story that the fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood did was completely untrue. Many of them add some elements of truth and real criminals and people who probably did deserve to go to prison. But there's a large number, dozens of people, I understand, based on what I've seen, that were manipulated, socially engineered, framed with fabricated and edited and spliced false evidence that didn't reflect reality truly, and even drugged. I've got a statement from one of his associates, Steve Grayson, who used to work with him, saying he witnessed Mahmood drugging people's drinks, and I believe that happened to me, and loads of other people have made that assertion as per circusofthemind.net. So, yeah, I believe that going back to the Criminal Cases Review Commission on the 3rd of February 2026, which I will be doing to deliver my bundle of new, fresh evidence obtained thanks to disclosure and discovery in Alex Smith versus News Group newspapers, will help hopefully to get my convictions overturned and then show that this happened to other people, because there were other people whose phones were hacked. In the Mittville mobile telephone voicemail interception litigation, sorry about the hearing aid moving, there were tons of cases filed by the 30th of September 2022, including Talisa Kontos-Davlos, and a whole bunch of other people, including Mahmood victims, including Prince Harry and Tom Watson. Indeed, along with Prince Harry and Tom Watson, I was one of the final 3 claimants standing in the mobile telephone voicemail interception litigation, and I was due in court in January 2025 alongside Tom Watson and Prince Harry, but their News Group newspapers weaponised the Part 36 offer to silence me and keep me out of court. And then, of course, they did the same thing with Prince Harry and Tom Watson on the first couple of days of what was supposed to be the trial. I was going to be a witness for Tom Watson and Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, because they also were victims of Mahmood. Next questions. Legal process and timeline. What stage are you currently at and what are the next steps? Well, I filed my claim, Alex Smith versus News Group newspapers, on the 30th of September 2022 as per the claimant specific particulars of claim on circusofthemind.net. News Group newspapers settled with me by weaponising a Part 36 offer towards in November 2025, and then in November 2024 rather, and then in early 2025 they issued me a private letter of apology, apologising for their journalist actions and invading my privacy. Check out my claimant-specific particulars of claim on circusofthemind.net to get more of an idea about that. It says, have News Group newspapers responded formally to your allegations? Yeah, as I say, they've now settled with me. They weaponised the Part 36 offer, and they've issued a private letter of apology, and during disclosure and discovery, I've got tons of videos, audios, photographs, documents and receipts that show unlawful information gathering. I would assert phone hacking and other unlawful ways of fabricating a story, including splicing videos and whatnot, is my assertion, and that stuff I'll be taking to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, delivering at 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, the 3rd of February 2026. Broader legal and media context. Do you believe Leveson Part 2 should be reopened in light of your case? Most certainly, not just in light of my case, although all the massive cover-up relating to Mazher Mahmood, the fake sheikh, and how he fabricated stories, framed people, and got people jailed with what I would say are now unsafe convictions, and the illegal things that he did, he had no legal right to be buying and selling drugs, and yet he was doing that, and various other things. So yeah, Leveson Part 2, we need it more than ever indeed. Sir Brian Leveson said that Part 2 should be extended, the scope of it, to not just look at the interactions between police and the media and public officials and the media and the dishonesty and corruption that goes on, but that also specific spotlight should be shone on the activities of fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood, because a whole bunch of unanswered questions there. What reforms do you hope your case will inspire in media accountability? Well, the media, it should be obvious. They should not be able, under any circumstance, to entrap people in... if the police are not legally allowed in England to do what Mazher Mahmood did, entrap people, it would be thrown out of court. It would never get to court. But he was allowed to operate as like a one-man police force. That's how it seems at first sight if the people were truly guilty of what they were accused of. But as we now see after the Talisa trial collapse and the evidence that's coming out more and more, the fact is that Mahmood was a serial creator of fabricated stories where he made up the story and then made people be manipulated and socially engineered into doing things they never wanted to do, or claiming they'd done things or said things they hadn't even done or said, by editing videotapes and using fabricated evidence. It was a serial perjurer. So just that things are done honestly and that the public are more aware. Part 36 offers your thoughts. Well, in relation to that, the fact is that I could not afford, I wanted to go into court, I wanted all my evidence, and my claim in specific particulars of claim is on circusthemind.net because that's a public document. However, my final draft statement that went to court a matter of weeks before the case was due to reach court is not in the public domain because it never actually got served to the court, because literally the day before it would have been and had to be, newsgroup newspapers weaponised a Part 36 offer to stop me from filing that and to stop it from ever going to court, because then there would have been judicial findings made on the further claims that I made in that statement, which were based on the massive amounts of new fresh evidence that I got through discovery and disclosure during Alex Smith versus NGM. Videos, audios, documents, photographs, receipts. So my thoughts, if I could have afforded to carry on to go to court, I would have done. In the same way that I know Hugh Grant would have carried on to court if he could have afforded to, as would have Prince Harry and Tom Watson, a whole bunch of other people. On a particular notice that Prince Harry and Tom Watson were both also targeted by Mazher Mahmood. But the thing is, if you are offered even one pet, if you were offered a figure that's more than a judge would likely award you were it to go to court, then the fact of the matter is that if you went to court and win and the judge awards you even 1 penny less than newsgroup newspapers had offered you before going to court, whilst you would get that compensation, damages paid to you, you would be liable because you turned down that Part 36 offer where they'd offered you, even if it was just 1 penny more, you would become liable for all of their legal costs, even though you'd won. And that could be in excess of £10 million. And nobody, at least not me, could afford that. Even Prince Harry, Tom Watson, Hugh Grant, and a whole bunch of other super rich celebrities couldn't afford £10 million of legal fees just to get a judge's rulings on things. So this is a massive, I would assert, a massive cover-up, because as you can also see on circusthemind.net, the generic particulars of concealment and destruction upon which myself and other victims relied in addition to our claim and specific particulars of claim, suggest that newsgroup newspapers knew exactly what was going on, encouraged, we argued, such activity to get stories and to make money, and covered up and concealed such illegal and unlawful activity from the police. And indeed, in a recent television programme, The Real Hack on ITV, which followed the Hack 7-part drama series, Sue Ackers, former Metropolitan Police officer who was involved in the phone hacking investigation, said on screen that the Director of Public Prosecutions at the time, Keir Starmer, had told her not to investigate corporate level accountability in the phone hacking, just to go for the journalists and the low level, low hanging fruit. So yeah, to me, it screams of cover-up and concealment, and that's another reason we need Leveson 2. Public perception and media coverage. What message do you want the public to take from your legal battle? Don't believe everything in the media. Check multiple independent resources, and even then, be aware that journalists can and do lie, especially if they are part of multi-million or multi-billion pound corporations. Newsgroup newspapers and their associates have spent, I believe it's over £1 billion to date to keep the allegations of victims out of court so that a judge cannot rule on them. Personal credibility and challenges. Some critics question your credibility due to your past. How do you respond? Well, my past is the stuff that most people criticise on the internet is not true. That's the point. I was never a drug-dealing, counterfeit money supplying, Uzi gun salesman, pimp or pornographer. They were lies. Simple as, fabricated. And other negative stuff printed in the media was lies. 1994, the Sun newspaper ran an article implying that I hypnotised women into sex against their will. Again, lies. Nothing of the sort ever occurred, and indeed if you look at my claimant's specific particulars of claim against newsgroup newspapers on circusofthemind.net, that was part of my claim against them as well, which they settled to keep my assertions out of court. What do you say to those who dismiss your case as opportunistic? Opportunistic? They ruined my life. They ruined my income opportunities. I made a television series in 2001, and when it came to trying to sell it to broadcasters, various people categorically said they would have loved to have purchased the license to broadcast live in the bus lane, my comedy magic, hypnosis, mind-reading television series, but that they wouldn't because they did not want the backlash that might come from people going, why is that on television? This guy's been sent to prison and the News of the World said he was a drug-dealing, counterfeit money supplying, Uzi gun salesman, pimp and pornographer, none of which has any basis or reality in truth. So those who say my case is opportunistic, well, clearly not, because there's a reason why newsgroup newspapers have weaponised Part 36 offers to silence me from stepping foot into a court and other people, and it's because what they did was wrong. What they did was unlawful, and many things that were done by their journalists were wholly illegal. They ruined lives with lies, dishonesty and fabrications. Final reflections. What would justice look like for you in this case? Well, I got a financial settlement, which I can't disclose, and a written letter of apology. But that doesn't bring back, this happened in 1998, so the article was published in 98, the fabricated article. Come April 26, that will be 99, 2000, that will be 28 years ago. I can't get those 28 years back in my life. My career could have been massively more successful and different if they had not used unlawful information gathering, illegal phone hacking, if they'd not edited tapes and such to make it look like I'd said or done things which I actually hadn't done. So what would justice look like? Well, the closest I can get to that now is to go back to the Criminal Cases Review Commission, which I am doing on the 3rd of February 2026, to present all the fresh evidence I've got to hopefully get my convictions, which I would argue are unsafe, overturned. The bigger picture would be that Leveson Part 2 or some similar investigation into Mahmood's dishonesty and illegal actions took place, and that all his victims, it became publicly known how much they were victims, what really went on, and that maybe they could get some real closure. Justice, really, all those things in that generic particulars of concealment and destruction that are on circusofthemind.net, a judge ruling on them in a court of law, or them being ruled upon and investigated by a Leveson Inquiry Part 2 investigation type thing. I'd love to submit stuff to a Leveson Inquiry Part 2 stuff. I've been researching Mahmood's dishonesty for decades, and in fact I have 2 books out called Imposter, Rupert Murdoch's Fake Sheik Mazher Mahmood Exposed, volumes 1 and 2, that are available on my website, magicalguru.com. That's magicalguru.com. Also, if you Google search Jonathan Royle, Mazher Mahmood, Medium, you can get up the Medium article, which gives a good overview of my case. And hopefully that's what you need. And there's much more stuff on circusofthemind.net.